Alright, so we'll continue to Kufyud. We're still involved in the halachas, the details of Sfeka, pretty much towards the end. What we'll do tonight is quite a few of the klalim or seifim that the Shach brings down are really lumped together. In other words, they appear to be, each one is a separate klal, but in reality, sometimes what the Shach does, a particular klal is an example of something that he said before. So it's not necessarily tremendous chiddush in every klal, just examples that he gives, and that's why we were able to cover a few of them together tonight. A very important area that comes up in Sfeka, which we'll see a little bit, review a little bit tonight, is the area of Ischazek Isur. Ischazek Isur means that there can be a situation where something has either a status of being usher until something else happens, or that an isur has already been predetermined as a result of a particular action. And perhaps one way of looking at it is that we are going to be fighting a situation which is more difficult than your average. An average situation tells us that statistically everything is in the air. We don't know one more than the other. Things are 50-50. That's what a suffix is. What we're going to see tonight is that sometimes not all sfekas are created equal. It all depends how you start, which we saw a little bit before, because we talk about sfeka hamishapech. Sfekas have to really be strong sfekas, that one can analyze them from the various angles. Because what we're saying is that it's a sfeka. We're not saying that there are two sfekas. We're saying that there's a metzias here, there is a situation here that has tremendous weight, because however you look at it is weakened. The potential problem is weakened by the fact that the sfekas are strong enough, not in themselves, each one by themselves, but together as a whole, to pretty much do away with any doubts. Which of course leads to a whole machlokas as to what is the strength of Sfeka. What does it draw its strength from? Is it a rov? Is it like rov? Rov means majority, and we know what majority does. Majority opinion, majority of pieces, right? So Sfeka, of course, has tremendous koach, no doubt about it. That's what we're learning here, that Sfeka can make a big difference. In Hilchos Shchita, in all kinds of situations that may arise by a woman who potentially may be a Niddah or not. We're talking about major issues. Well, we need to see if there's any leniency. And sometimes a leniency can be derived from a Sfeka. Not because we have two separate Sfekas, but we have Sfekas that somehow contribute to each other and make the case stronger. The combined strength of them. So that is why it was important to really go through these klalim as to determine what is a suffix. We covered Safek the Raisa, the Rabbanon, and we'll talk a little bit about it maybe Thursday as to what happens in a Safek in Halacha. Safek that we don't know. Is that a Safek? It's a famous question that comes up in various areas of Halacha. And I think we covered a little bit in Taaruvot, Safek machmas chisoron yediyah. Remember that? Mm-hmm. We don't know. We're not sure. Well, maybe find out if you're not sure. Well, maybe I can find out. Right? Anyway, so there's different kinds of sfekas, and the question is if that constitutes a suffix or not. But here we have more than just what constitutes a suffix. Is we want to make sure that this is a real sfeka, because otherwise it may just be multiple doubts, and multiple doubts don't have the same weight as two sfekas that are really joined together, one on top of the other, pretty much attacking the same question, the same problem. So the Shach, of course, goes through the various scenarios, and you'll be surprised what he says at the very, very end. After I told you all of this, he says, be careful with Sfeka. It's a big thing. It's not so simple. Don't take it so lightly. It is something serious. And there's machlokes. Not everybody agrees with all the klalim he writes. So obviously it's good that we're going through them, because it does allow us also, gives us the opportunity to analyze the situation in depth as to what the problem really is and how we can resolve it, what the chances are if something did happen or not. Because as we will see, one of the klalim later on is sometimes chances are not 50-50, but chances are 60%. When something is not 50-50, when there's a little bit of a higher probability, it may not qualify as a real suffix then, because it's not a suffix, because there's more of a chance that this is pointing in a particular direction. So suffix means I really don't know for sure. It has equal, it's balanced, a balanced situation. And whenever something takes away a little bit of that balance, it may disqualify the suffix, or disqualify at least the Sfeka, that it's not a real Sfeka. So we had, in Klal Kof Hey, which is where we're holding, we have a situation as follows. We have a suffix Isur Torah, Shenis Arev, which is pretty much what we saw in the Mechaber. It's a suffix on the Isur Torah, that it got mixed up in the Taaruvot. Now, the difference between the Mechaber and this Klal is that the Shach says, in the first case, this suffix got mixed up bechad bechad. In other words, it was not in roiv heter. In other words, it with one more piece of heter. So that's called chad bechad. So you don't have roiv heter here. But we would love to say that this is a Sfeka. We would like, why not? It's a suffix. It's not a vada use. It's a suffix legabe de is. And here we have a suffix, which piece it is too. So the Shach says that we remember what we pretty much covered before, and here he brings it into a klal, or seif in itself, that each one is kegufa shel isur. After all, you don't really have a roiv here. Each one is treated as the isur, and you can't go beyond that point. Not only can't you go beyond that point, what happens if now it got mixed up in another taruvos? We spoke briefly about that too, because if you started off with chad bechad, you don't really. Do you have two taruvos? Remember, if you have two taruvos by a suffix isur, it's good. You don't need three. When did we need three by a double chashuv? By the way, it's three taruvos with double chashuv. But if it's a suffix isur to begin with, two taruvos is sufficient. So the question was, well, what if one of those taruvos is only chad bechad? Does it have to both be roiv? So it's a machlekes, different ways of looking at it. But initially, apparently, there would be a consensus that this, of course, would not fly. We can't take this anywhere, because right away you have each one kegufa shel isur, and you can't apply a sfeka to that. What would happen, therefore, if one nafkamina? What would happen if one of those chatichas right now, which is kegufa shel isur, got mixed up with roiv heter? We wouldn't allow it either midin sfeka, according to the Shach right now. We said that there may be a machlokes here, but according to this klal, we would not allow it for sfeka, because you're starting off with a gufa shel isur already. Right? Like a suffix in a guf, and the suffix taruvos that we discussed, they don't qualify. They're not one of the same. The one is in the guf, the suffix in the guf, in the body, and one is in the taruvos. And that's what's mashma also from the Ramah that we saw in Sif Tes. Some are matir. It all depends if you allow suffix beguf and suffix in taruvos. All right, let's go on. Klalim 26 to 32. They all pretty much relate to the same thing. So I put them under 26 to 32, but we'll go through each one. In 26, all he adds is a small detail. That all that we have said till now, all the isurim that were mentioned before, that something is aser, something is not constitutes a suffix. For example, by suffix treifa, or other isurim deraisa, that they would not qualify as a suffix or a sfeka. That thing would also be true even in a hefsed meruba, even if you're not going to eat them all as one.
So in all those cases that we said, you have two suffix here, but they don't have to one.
Right. So don't be machal like that. If there's a hefsed meruba, the situation would. You're right. I would like to add, however, without getting back into that sugya, just that it may make a difference. At least according to some poskim, the famous concept of Niddah. If sfekas are born together or not born together, that apparently does have some clout. That apparently does have some weight, according to some. And the two isurim are apart. In other words, they don't happen at the same time. You could say maybe that they may not qualify, but if the two happen at the same time, it may actually work out better. And the Beis Yosef actually would go along with that in the example that we gave in the Chabad.
So when you
Something
become aware of
begufo,
both
something
of them,
bettaruvos. Yeah. In other words, that may make a difference sometimes. Yeah. No. Oh, yes, according to have said the tzorech mitzvah, tzorech seuda, that some would say. Some would say outright it's always okay, and some would say, maybe that kind of a situation. So even though the Shach doesn't talk about it, obviously he doesn't agree with it. He just says plainly, even behefse meruba. And by the way, he's not mechalek before. He himself, by the way, he's not mechalek between one another. But there are some who do. So it's an important chiluk. Just figured that I would mention that again, even though we've discussed it. That Niddah, at the same time, can make a difference. All right.
The word hainu.
The hainu. That is. That is. Yeah. All right, let's go to Klal Kuf Zayin and Kuf Tes. Kuf Zayin and Kuf Tes somehow go together. And then we'll go back to Kuf Tes.
If you translate it to Hebrew, would it be right to translate?
Yeah. So 27 and 29, Kuf Zayin and Kuf Tes. Here he brings down the Isur Veheter. That basically says it's Osir. If you have a situation of a Sfeka b'mokum d'Ischazek Isur. So now we're into the machlokes of Ischazek Isur in a Sfeka situation. The Ramah briefly alluded to it when he gave the example of a chicken that was found to have a broken wing.
So there is a chazaka.
The Cheskas Isur. Yeah, Cheskas Isur in this particular case is any time an animal, if we have doubts about the shechita itself, about the kashrus of the animal, it has a Cheskas Isur. The Cheskas Isur oimedes, as long as it is alive.
Because it started as
you can't eat the way.
Shechita
Shechita has to happen. How did you say? To succeed. To succeed, yes.
And it becomes food.
Right. In order to enable or to remove the Cheskas Isur from this animal, from the chicken or whatever. So long as I have a question about the validity of the shechita, in a sense, right? We have a Cheskas Isur here, as opposed to the validity of a potential treifa. That may be a little bit different, because if an animal is shechted properly, we say the opposite. It's becheskas het.
Once you
shechted properly. No. Oh, but there may be an internal problem. Whoever told you there may be. Why? Otherwise, they'd have to. If they thought that, they'd have to check every single chicken, and they don't do that. Why don't they do that? Because there's a chazaka. Most chickens don't have internal problems like animals do, like sirchas in animals, right? Glatt versus non-glatt. Have you heard of glatt chickens?
I actually did.
You did? Yeah, like kosher lepesach toilet paper too. Yeah. Anyway, there's different shechitas in it. There's different chumras. There's some are more strict, and how many can you do? So how many can you do? 100 a minute. Oh no. Yeah. By the way, that could be a problem. What could be a problem, by the way, with fast shechita? Something called drusa. Drusa does not have to, there's different kinds of drusa. If you cut, boom, instead of halacha v'hoiva, yeah, you may chop the head off. You may go too far. You don't want to go too little or too far. You want to do just right, at least roiv Siman. So you got to know what you're doing. You really have to be good at it. You have to be experienced if you want to do it fast. Fast is never good. It's a problem. But it could be that if things are made easy for you, like they're coming down, they're coming at you with what conveyor belt is that they call them, and you don't have to work too hard. And by the way, I'll tell you what the conveyor belt is. There's a Bach. I'm skipping around, but I'll come back to the Bach. I'll tell you it right now. There's a Bach that says something very interesting in Hilchas Treifas. The Bach says that remember the stuff that we had with a chicken, broken wing.
Right.
He says something interesting, and I didn't look at the Bach now, so just I'm quoting from memory here. He says, by chicken that the wing is broken, we have a Sfeka. What's a Sfeka? Maybe it broke after the shechita. When you threw it, you piled it up, like some places they do. And even if you want to claim it happened before, and therefore there may be a potential problem that it perforated the lungs, maybe it didn't. And Ramah says you don't have to check it. You don't have to worry about it. It's a real Sfeka, which is interesting. You don't have to worry about it and be matriach to check it. Okay. Ramah says that, and that's the halacha. In other words, it's a real Sfeka in that case. But the Bach, I'm almost sure that the Bach brings this case, and this will relate to one of the kolonim that we will see soon in the Shach, that, no, the first suffix maybe broke after the shechita, is not a good suffix. Because those sheichtim, when they grab those chickens, they tend to bend the wing, the way they grab it. And the chances are greater that the chicken's wing was broken because of the way he held it. Did that happen before Shechita? Oh, that would throw off the whole Sfeka if that's true.
But that would also probably make it less likely it would have gone out, not in.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Whether it increased the balance on one
Not
side,
necessarily. A broken wing is a problem. A broken wing creates a problem, a potential problem.
It doesn't help us.
Does it, if you...
That's a big problem. No. We don't want it to have happened before.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
if the box said will be the way they grabbed it,
Yeah. Right.
if that makes that's the other part of the suffix, does it balance back? Or each one at a 40?
No. That's the example that I'm going to give you later of a Sfeka that doesn't work because it's not a Sfeka hashokul. It's not a Sfeka that are balanced. The first suffix is out.
So you don't have a Sfeka anymore.
No
so you
more
have a
Sfeka.
suffix treifa.
Exactly.
So if you have a suffix treifa, it's a suffix, it's a deraisa.
Yeah, you better check it. You better check it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better check it.
If you don't check it, you can't do it.
No, not according to what
Because the first suffix is gone.
It's gone.
So
Yeah.
the first suffix, you don't have a Sfeka.
You don't have a Sfeka, yeah. That's true. So when you have a conveyor belt, that's what the reason brought it up now is when you have a conveyor belt, maybe you're not grabbing it. The suffix would be a suffix, a shokul, a balanced suffix. It could have happened later, it could have happened before, I'm not sure. It all depends on the circumstances. The circumstances really will dictate if something is possible or not, by the way, depending on the suffix, the nature of the suffix. In a breaking of the wing, the way this used to happen is when they used, boom, we're done, boom. It could have easily happened then, when it fell. But if that's not happening. Conveyor belt. A wing is broken. How could it have broken? When did it happen? It could have been when it was alive. This chicken got hit, fell off the roof, or whatever. Yeah, they fly around. They break bones just like we do. Just that this bone, especially the wing, is a sensitive place because of where it is. It could actually, the inside could have perforated the lung, would render it treif. All right, so the Isa Beheter. Yeah.
If you have one, but you have so.
Yeah, no. Here we don't. It's not like by worms and bugs. You see a whole package. You have quite a few. Then you say, well, the whole thing throw in the garbage. You have enough of a chazaka that the whole thing is infested, right? Or the way around. You've checked several, and you don't have to check the rest. You have a chazaka that they probably are not there. That's not. Yeah, that's not here.
You're supposed to mark each one.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
So we could go
on what?
What?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure sheichtim and slaughter houses, schlachthouses, and all these places where sheichtim process. I'm sure they have statistics. They can tell you how many out of 100 are glatt. And then you say, oh, you know what? Those cows that are coming from Uruguay are really good. We're getting 60% glatt or more. I know about this because I was a little bit involved, and they told me, from this place we only got a few glatt. From those, more glatt. So apparently, it has to do with the fact that they speak Spanish. Those cows, huh? Or what they eat, actually, or what they give them to eat, or the weather and everything, or that they have more room to go. That's what they say about.
I remember Rabbi Kin once said, I don't remember which Latin American country, horses were almost extinct.
A certain breed, maybe.
Right.
He really, that could be.
It was almost, and he said he doesn't attempt to forget the rest.
Exactly.
Because
Sure.
He said there's a chazaka on these cows, and this
really
chazaka, so they don't have to.
Really?
Yeah. He wasn't kosher.
So that's the question. If you
obviously you create new facts on the ground, as they say.
Right.
Yes, that's what how chazakas and roivs are created to begin with. We have roiv of the population does or does not do something. And the Gemara there's several Gemaras that it's just about that, chazakas and roivs. Of what will people do? What are people going to most likely do? What is the general consensus of the pop? We have to rely on that sometimes. All right, so the Isa Beheter says that in a mokum dischazik isura, Sfeka won't work. He asers. So the Isa Beheter asers mokum dischazik isura. Now, the way the Shach explains this Isa Beheter is that he says over there, He's specifically talking about the question whether the roiv asimonim were shechted or not in a chicken. In other words, there was a question about whether the shechita was good. Then, what's the second suffix? The second suffix was that it was nisarev. It got mixed in roiv. So the Isur Heta says, listen, the first suffix is already huchra le'isur. It has already been determined to be asur. Suffix in the shechita itself, what do we have? It's chazek isura. So it's already determined. You don't really have a real sfeka here because the first suffix is already gone. It's asur if you have a suffix legabe de shechita. Usually we don't have a suffix. Baruch Hashem, the shochet goes. He has kavana. He checks his knife, makes the bracha. Well, why should he have any doubts? The only doubt that can arise, by the way, sometimes it does, is if he sees a pegima. Well, now, oh wow, a pegima. When did it happen? Okay, but let's say he has no pegima. Does he have to assume something went wrong? No. But here we're talking about a situation where a suffix developed, obviously. So if a suffix developed the gabe de shechita itself, the Yisur Heta says that is chazek isura, therefore it doesn't count as a sfeka, it would be asur. The first one is already asur. The first suffix says it's asur because of the cheskas isur of the chicken or the animal. So this, of course, is going according to the shita. I think it's Rabbeinu Tam. I think we spoke about that. That holds that it would be okay to have a suffix in the guf and a suffix in the taruvas. Otherwise, what's the question here? Who needs b'chlal? Remember, suffix beguf, suffix taruvas is no good. So what we're saying is that this Isur Heter is going according to, even if you are matir sfeka, where one suffix is in the guf and one suffix is in the taruvas, the Isur Heter will tell you that if the suffix here is about the shechita, it won't qualify, because when you have this chazek isura, when you're starting off with a cheskas isur, that suffix is not a suffix. Therefore, you're left with one suffix. So Darke Moshe brings this, and he disagrees with the Isur Heter on this. He's matir, because he says that the chazaka. Well, we'll come back to that a little bit. He just says, let's just leave it at that. That the Darke Moshe says it's mutar in this particular example. The ones who actually get into a little bit more into be mechalek between the two cases, between various cases, are the Shach and Tas, not the Darke Moshe. He just disagrees about his chazek isur, because that's really a big machloikas, whether you say sfeka by his chazek isur. Okay, but the Shach and Tas make a very important chiluk, and that's what Klal Kof Zayin and Kof Tes are all about. Very interesting chiluk. It all depends, they say. His chazek isur. It all depends on if the first suffix, if the chazaka, that is soiser the suffix or not. Does it contradict the suffix or not? Pay attention to that. It all depends on if the chazaka contradicts the suffix or not. If it does, then the sfeka is not mutar, because the chazaka has already predetermined everything. If it's contradicts, as opposed to if it doesn't contradict. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you have a behemoth that was slaughtered. A suffix arose about a pegima on the sakin. Then the sakin got lost, and you can't find it. You can't determine if it's a real pegima or not. So you have a sfeka on the shechita. What's a sfeka? Suffix if this was a pegima or not. And even if you want to say it's a pegima, it could have been that it got a pegima when it hit the mafrekes, hit the backbone, which would be okay because that's after the shechita. Okay? And then, of course, you have the taruvos after that. So he says this particular type of an example is a sfeka, or a chazaka, which is soiseres. It contradicts the whole sfeka. Why does it contradict? Because basically, the whole sfeka by the pegima is to determine if there was a shechita or not. Okay? That has nothing to do with the Taaruvot later on. Right? The cheskas isra over here, basically it was already machriya. Because in the case of the suffix in the shechita, that's only one suffix.
So we
yeah.
only one of it.
In other words, we have really. Let me see if I can find it inside here.
That was what I was.
Yeah. 1 second. Let me see if I can read it from inside. I'm sorry, forget about the suffix of the Taaruvot, because the suffix of Taaruvot is a separate idea. We don't need to come on to the suffix of Taaruvot here. Now we're dealing with the kind of Sfeka that we have to begin with, and Ischazek Isura. So the Shach explains that in this case of where there's a suffix in the Shechita, both Sfekas, the suffix on if there was a Pgima, and even if you said there was, maybe it was in the Mafrekes, those Sfekas are trying to be makir the Shechita, are trying to say that the Shechita is a kosher Shechita. And the Cheskes Isser is telling me no. The Cheskes Isser over here is contradicting or going against what the Sfekas are trying to impose, are trying to bring about. It completely defeats it. The Cheskes Isser says no. In other words, you can't give me such a Sfeka, okay? Because the Cheskes Isser contradicts it, goes completely against it. In other words, the Cheskes Isser, according to those who hold whenever there is a Cheskes Isser, there's a problem, right? The Shach and Taz come along and say, but wait a minute, there will be a difference between the various scenarios. Where a Cheskes Isser is contradicting the Sfeka, it basically undoes it. The Sfeka, he is allowing the Shechita to say, this is a Shechita Keshera, and the Cheskes Isser is saying, no such thing ever happened.
If I'm understanding correctly, I'm wondering, could it be that what you're saying, sir, obligates us that we have to prove that there was some event that brought about the transformation to food?
Yes.
And the Sfeka that we have here, Sfeka that we have here, is a suffix legabe, was that transformation accomplished?
Yes.
So I know that I need to accomplish that transformation.
Okay.
I'm in doubt whether that transformation was accomplished.
Right.
So as a consequence out of that, the consequence is, so I don't have enough proof to claim that now it's become kosher.
Right. I don't have enough proof. Very good. Yeah.
There can never be a suffix.
Right. In this case, if you hold Cheskes Isser as a problem, and many do, then this kind of a Sfeka, if this is your doubt, it's not a doubt whether the lungs were perforated. It's not a doubt whether something else happened. It's a doubt that God by the Shechita itself, was it done right? You really have such a doubt? Yeah. I saw the Pgim, I just don't have it now. I don't really, forget. You don't even know now that the Shechita occurred. There's not enough proof. Right. Very good. Yeah.
It approves the reliability or the certainty that there was an act that could have food. It approves that certainty.
That's what Cheskes Isser would do if you hold that Cheskes Isser is a problem. Yeah.
If you hold that Cheskes Isser is a problem between Ashkenazim and Sephardim and Hasidim, if you hold it the other proper method of Shechita, then you've got a Cheskes Isser in the Shechita.
No, he's referring more to Hilchas Treifas than to in Treifas. There's some differences between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, not in the Shechita itself. The Shechita is very clear. It's a Mishnah. How do you do it? How do you perform it? It's very black and white.
Then why do we have people who?
Because they wear a gartel.
No, they go to the mikveh.
They go to the mikveh. Yeah,
no.
Let me just say it this way. I myself am not an expert in all the Shechitas, but I can tell you is that some are more careful than others. Chassidish Shechita would imply, supposedly, they're Yore Shamayim, that they go to the mikveh between every Shechita, like a Sofer Stam. There are some Sofrim that before they write the Shem, their Toivel. I don't think there's too many Sofrim that would go before every letter. Otherwise, it'd take them 25 years to write a Sefer Torah. Right. Every letter. Yeah, but it could be every day. Yes. Every day, yes. Before every Shem Hashem, definitely yes. This kind of a Sefer Torah definitely has more Kedusha. Let me tell you a quick story. One of the Rothschilds hired a Sefer to write the Sefer Torah for him. And he made up that he would pay him every so often that he would finish a certain part, or every so many weeks. So the Sefer comes to collect his money, and he tells him, how much do I owe you? He takes a look at his booklet. He says, let's see, from April 4th to May 15th, this is how much I would say. So, what did you say? April? And not year? You're using secular months to do your calculations? Take the money and don't write me the Sefer Torah. Cancel the order. That's not the kind of Sefer I want. So when it comes to Shechita, that may be an extreme example, but there are some people who may be more medaic and maybe more strict about certain requirements as to how often to check, how knowledgeable he is, how many chickens does he allow to do? He won't do 100 a minute. He'll only do 25. He's more careful. That's what they mean.
I can't for.
Yeah.
But I remember back east there was just a tape.
Sure.
From Broyer Street, though.
Yeah.
And those,
Sure.
And those were, so that I don't understand.
Let me just say one more thing about shchita. The rabbis tell us something very, very scary. Tov shebatabachim legehenom. The best of butchers will go to Gehenna. Why? They meant over here not only butchers, but shechtim too, possibly. Or those that had responsibilities from A to Z. Because the temptation of money is so strong that many shechtim, unfortunately, or butchers, have succumbed to the Yetzer Hara. We've heard about it even in our times. Were prepared to feed Klal Yisrael with treifas, nevelas and treifas. And unfortunately, it's hard to believe that people who were God-fearing or believed to be God-fearing, but apparently the Gemara said that. It means that the Yetzer Hara is involved here because of the money that's involved. My father-in-law, Shalom, would tell me too, cases of shechtim, or I should say butchers, were tempted to mix non-kosher meat with kosher meat. It's cheaper. Ground meat, they both look the same. Why would somebody want to do that? That's like chazer. But the Yetzer Hara of money is it's the most powerful Yetzer Hara that exists. You know that? The most powerful Yetzer Hara. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Rubam begezel. The majority of people stumble when it comes to stealing, taking money that is not theirs, right? Gezel. Gezel does not necessarily mean highway robbery. Rubam begezel. Mi'ut be'arayas. The minority will stumble in immoral acts or behavior. The kulon and everybody will make a mistake of avak lashon hara, the dust of lashon hara, because people don't know exactly what to say, what not to say. Somebody asks you a question about somebody and make a face. That making a face is a problem. You can interpret that to mean something negative. So what do we see from this? Rubam begezel. The majority of the world is not careful with issues of money. People like money. The Yisrael is very powerful, and that is why, not everybody has this problem, but some people really have a big problem when it comes to, you offer them a big bribe. Let's say a rabbi, even a rabbi, chas v'sholem, with a long beard, till his knees. The beard is so long till the knees. And he's a dayan, and you offer him $150,000 to help you in this case. You think he may not do it? Unfortunately, there's a roiv on this too. And chazakas, that people fall for money. The Torah says so. The Torah says so. So who would not fall for it? A tzaddik gomer. The Gemara tells us, "Ein apotrofos le'arayos." You put somebody with a naked woman. What are the chances that he will not sin if there's nobody to see him? Nobody can say it won't happen to him because ein apotrofos le'arayos. There's no guarantor. There's no one that can claim that he's secure, that he's safe, that he will not fall for it. So what we see from this is that the Yetzer Hara is very powerful, and unfortunately, when it comes to these, some people just are not careful or very lenient. Modern rabbis, modern in quotes, this is outmoded, this is old style, all these chumras. This is the 21st century, you don't have to worry about it. Today there's sanitary conditions, they're going to make up all kinds of stories. They never learned Yore Deah, right? They don't know what the problems are, the potential problems of treifas. So some shchita, even though I just finished saying that be careful with any shchita because of the problems, some shchita, I believe, are more careful than others. Yes. I don't know names. I really don't know. I really don't know. I trust most of them are good when it comes to chicken. Because chicken has less problems. Yeah. When it comes to cows, you're dealing with sirchas. But then it depends if you are Bet Yosef or if you're Ramah. Most likely than not, hopefully, the problems that may arise today would be with corrupt individuals using treif meat versus a real problem arising in a behemoth that this was a real sircha or not. Because I don't know, if it's a sircha, today we have the luxury. Remember, today we have the luxury of saying, I don't want to buy this from the goy. You only pay for what you slaughter in many places. So why not take it's going to be a little more hard work? Nah. Whereas in the past, the temptation was great. You know what it meant for a poor man who came to the Rav, is this cow tray for kosher? It's his whole livelihood. His whole investment was just lost. So the Rabbanim, the poskim there had to really be careful, and they had to look over the shitas. Can we find a kula, a leniency here? Today you don't have to do that. Then why be corrupt? Money, all kinds of kunzim, as a shtick.
Does the Gemara actually say whether this is to Jews or to Gentiles as well?
To the whole world.
The whole world?
The Gemara is talking about humanity, human beings. Yeah, it's not just Jews. Obviously, the Jew may have the advantage that he's Yerushalayim, that he has halachas, and hopefully he has more restraints, or deterrence, or conscience. Yeah. Whereas a guy will not think twice. Look at this goyim. I'm told that there's some sleeping outside of the store before Black Friday, is it called? For a couple of days, so you can save a few $100 on some silly gadget. Look at the mentality of the goyim. Look what they're doing. What? Well, a Jew doesn't think like that. Hopefully not. I mean, sleep outside, save a few $100 on a gadget.
But they could even save more by not buying it.
Anyway, they had better things to do. Let's go on. So the Shach therefore makes an important chiluk that if you have a chazaka that is soiser, that contradicts the suffix, the Sfeka, then you don't really have a Sfeka. You really have a question whether, in this case of shechita, whether it was a good shechita or not. So if you hold this chazak isura, the behema is also until you know for sure it's shechted, and if you have a suffix the gaba the shechita, then you can't say, well, I have a double suffix that the shechita may have been a good shechita. It won't help you if you say it's chazak isura. Why? Because the shechita may never have happened. And if the shechita didn't happen, it's also the behema. You can't eat the behema.
It's still in my mind.
Yeah, okay.
I can quickly relate to that.
Yeah, all right.
It's to me that the underlying problem is what value.
Sure.
The Havdil, you have a great tzaddik, or Yochai, or whatever. You might have Jews sleeping outside to stand.
Sure,
to talk with
exactly.
Them.
That's something
what
else.
They value.
Yeah.
So the difference is what you value.
What you value, yeah.
Now, people who are godless, who don't have a belief in Hashem,
right,
they still have the same capacity
they
as
do.
being to value
of devotion and worship. Yes, they do.
To value, so
they worship and they do
so
something else. Yeah, they worship idols. Yeah. What's the second example? The second example is where you have a cheskas iser too, but it's not contradicting the Sfeka. For example, the one we gave, an oif, a chicken whose wing is broken. You slaughter it. Oh, what happened? What now? Well, did it break before it was slaughtered? Did it break after? And even if you say it broke before, well, it was alive, and therefore it's a problem because it could have perforated the lung. Maybe it didn't. A real good Sfeka. But what I mean? But you have a cheskas iser here. The cheskas iser has nothing to do with whether the lung became perforated or not. You follow? It does not contradict it. Cheskas iser here of an animal that is in the cheskas iser until we know it's slaughtered has nothing to do with did it perforate the lung or not. It does not contradict it. It doesn't go against it. It's a separate doubt altogether. So it's okay. It's mutter according to this word.
So in other words, the difference between the two cases. In the first case, we had a suffix regarding the process undertaken to convert the animal. In the second case, we don't have a suffix regarding the process. We have the suffix regarding the animal itself, the substance.
The substance, right.
So if our suffix is regarding the substance, then the cheskes of the animal, which requires the does not contradict the procedure.
Here it doesn't.
Because we don't have the suffix, it's not in the procedure.
And not in the procedure, right. Because in other words, you still have a cheskas iser, and the cheskas iser basically is telling us that this may be still aser. But in the case where our whole suffix does not concern the procedure, as Ilan said, concerns something completely different, so the cheskas iser does not contradict it. It does not interfere with it, I should say. Right? And therefore, it's mutter. It would be, the Sfeka would be a good Sfeka. The Shach even says that even the Isu Beheta would be maskiv, this kind of a Sfeka, which is interesting. You find, because this kind of an example, the Cheskas Iser that exists, does not get in the way. We have a separate kasha here. When did it happen? You see, the Cheskas Iser is not telling us, you know what? You can't eat it because I don't even know if you shechted it yet and removed the Cheskas Iser. Like in the first case of the Sofik Begabe Pekima. No, the Shechita was done fine. It's Becheskas Heter, if anything. Right? Remember we said before, once it's shechted, okay, it's Becheskas Heter. It's okay. But wait a minute, you may have additional problems. Oh, well, I have Sfekas for that. So here, the Cheskas Isra, which exists, does not contradict or does not interfere with the potential problem. Therefore, the Sfeka undoes the problem for me. So this is Klal Chav Zayin and Chav Tes. The Pri Chodesh, however, is a very important prach. Disagrees with the Shach and Taz. He says, forget this whole thing about Sfeka Keneged Chazaka is always mutter. He just makes it very easy. He says, as far as he's concerned, he says it doesn't make a difference. Even in a Sfek Shchita, we have to understand why. It's nice to say there's a machlokes, but it helps to understand why each one says what they say. So let's take a moment just to analyze why would the Pri Chodesh says there's no problem, even though there's a Cheskes Isser, and why would the Shach and Taz say sometimes there is a problem? Okay. So the Pri Chodesh, basically, this is how they explain it. The Pri Chodesh takes his whole svara from the Rashba. And he says, if you look at the Rashba and you look at the whole koyach of Sfeka of how it works very similar to Roiv. Roiv, remember Roiv, the famous Roiv? Roiv has powers. Roiv has a tremendous koyach. By the way, in some cases in the Gemara we see it, Sfeka even outdoes Roiv. Where Roiv may not be sufficient, Sfeka would be stronger. In some cases, Sfeka is even stronger than Roiv. They were more lenient because there's a real Sfeka, which is interesting. But they're at least the same. They're at least similar. Okay? If that's the case, there's a famous klal, Ruba and Chazaka, Ruba Odif. Whenever you have two opposing, what would we call them? Two opposing concepts. One is called Roiv and one is called Chazaka. We have a famous klal that says Ruba and Chazaka, Ruba Odif.
That either of the two could help me.
No. Ruba Odif means Ruba is better.
Better, right.
Adif. Ruba is better than Chazaka. You have a Chazaka, but you have a Roiv.
So Roiv...
And they're opposing each other.
They're opposing
each other.
So the Roiv outweighs the...
The Roiv outweighs Chazaka. If you have a Roiv that says something, but you have a Chazaka about something, the Roiv outweighs Chazaka. Now, based on that, the Pri Chodesh says, or the Pri Chodesh would say, Sfeka would be the same. The Sfeka Chazaka would be better than a Chazaka.
So he disagreed?
No, that's why he says that it doesn't make a difference that is Chazek Isura.
Yeah.
Because he says the whole idea that I learn, that we learn about Sfeka that it has a koyach is from where? From Roiv.
Right.
And if anything, it could even be better than Roiv. But it's the same. And by Roiv we said Roiv for Chazaka, Roiv Odif. Roiv is better. So Sfeka should be better than Chazaka. So what if you have a Chazaka? You have a Sfeka.
So in the case of the blemished knife that I can't find?
Right, he said he would permit it. Yes, in the case of the blemish, right. Pri Megadim writes on this that, all right, very good. What would the Shach and Taz then have to say? So the Pri Megadim basically explains why the Shach and Taz were machmir. By Sfeka by Shchita, by the case of the Shchita, for example. He says that by Sfeka the Shchita, it would be a Derabanan. It would be Asher Miderabanan.
Who, the Pri Megadim?
The Pri Megadim says that if you say it's Asher, no, he said those who hold it's Asher, it would be, the Isser is Miderabanan. Really, in other words, Midoraisa, it would work.
Because of the Pri Chodesh, it would work?
Yes, because he's right in principle.
Uh-huh.
You're right. Pri Megadim wants to explain that Shach and Taz. So he says, you know what? The whole Isur by Shchita, or in those cases where we say Chazek Isur is a problem, it's only Midirabanan Asur.
So the Rabbanan chose
to be
more
machmir.
attention to the Chazaka,
Why?
even though in principle
Right. Why? Because you find, he says, that by Ruba in Chazaka, he says that's what he says. You find that even by Ruba and Chazaka, Chazal many times were machmir. Why were they machmir? Because they were saying, even though you have a roiv, smoich miut lechazaka, add the miut, the minority. There's a majority. Add the minority to the chazaka, and guess what you have when you add the minority to the chazaka? Itra ruba. Your roiv falls apart. It comes down. And they were machmir. They were machmir. Take the minority chances that do occur and add it to the chazaka which you have. You have a chazaka. It's not that you have ruba and miuta, because ruba, of course, is ruba. No, but you have a chazaka. Oh, you do? Add the miut. Now add to it the miut that you have from the roiv. You understand what I mean by miut, right? Then itra ruba. The ruba is gone. So same thing by Sfeka, keneged chazaka. And then Rabbi Elyahu, I think, also brings down the same idea. Basically, that's the problem with Sfeka keneged a chazaka, because yes, it's a Sfeka, but you have a chazaka, so the Sfeka is upgeschwacht, as we say in Yiddish. It's weak. It's weakened. It's completely weakened.
But what happened to the of Roiv and chazaka Roiv Ad?
Yeah, so the Mikvaot says it's midoraisa. You're right.
Midoraisa it's from Adis. Yeah. Midorabanan it's you.
Because he says you find examples. Yeah.
So he says midoraisa it's Adif, but midorabanan you add them to the.
Yeah, because the Mikvaot says you find that the Chachamim were machmir even by Ruba keneged chazaka at times. Why? Because so midoraisa fine, but if that's the case that they were machmir there, that's why we're being machmir here too.
So when Pri Chadash brought the Adif, apparently he did not understand the Rabbanan, the Yuhaka, because he meant the Adif to permit it. He didn't mean to
right. He just says, listen, we learned the whole idea of Sfeka from Roiv. That's what he says. I looked it up. The Rashba brings it down. There's a Chuvas Rashba.
In order to permit it.
Yeah, to permit it. Yeah. No, he says the whole idea of Sfeka we learn. The Rashba teaches us.
So he doesn't go with this miyut.
Yeah. He says no. He says it's very simple. So it doesn't make a difference, therefore, if he's chazik isura or not. Sfeka is powerful.
No, the reason I'm asking is because, of course, he was aware of these statutes.
Obviously.
Yeah. So what does he do except this?
Yeah. Anyway, if you want, we have a couple more minutes. We can go through a few real quick klalim, or you want to continue Thursday, or you want to wait just a few more minutes? Okay, we'll finish then. Klal Chof Ches is a little bit different than what we've just learned. Klal Chof Ches says if you have a chazaka, which is so said at 3, not 2. What if you have 3? That's what Chof Ches is all about. The Taz, this is where the Taz is a little bit different. The Taz says it makes no difference. If the chazak has kasisr there, you can have 3 Sfekas, it doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference how many Sfekas you have. You're not going to be matri the cheskas Isra if the chazaka is soiser as the Sfek. The Shach says it's mutter. He says like this, it's true that the cheskas Isra is machras. It determines that the first suffix is asr, but you're still left with 2 more. Sfeka. So he likes the number 3, because with number 3, if you drop off 1, you're left with 2. That's the way he takes it apart. He says, yes, if you have 3, 1 is cancelled out. When you learn algebra, you basically cancel the zeros or whatever, the x's or whatever. You're left with this. Shach says you're left with 2 good Sfekas. Yes, 1 is no good, but the other 2 is a Sfeka.
So he says
if you have 3,
it's the chazaka?
No, he says the first suffix the chazaka has eliminated. The cheskas isur.
Yeah, the chazaka is eliminated.
One suffix.
So I still have the chazaka though.
No, but now I move it aside.
So I have to have eliminated the chazaka too?
Yeah,
the first suffix.
Because they self-eliminate each other, I guess you could say.
They mutually.
Mutually. So you're left with the cheskas.
So a suffix can eliminate the chazaka, according to.
Well, basically they eliminate each other.
I understand that.
Right.
I understand the first suffix is gone, but I don't understand why the chazaka is sudden, because that would imply that one single chazaka can eliminate the chazaka, one single Sfeka can eliminate the chazaka.
I think maybe that's why the Taz says it doesn't really make a difference. But the Shach is learning that you have to. He doesn't go into depth into this. That's why it's hard to figure out where he gets. He just makes it very simple. He says once you have a triple, 3 Sfekas, then yes, in Ochiname, 1 suffix does not have any koyach by itself because the chazaka is soiseres. But we have 2 more, and these are left alone. Apparently, you leave these alone; they're doing battle with each other, and you can handle another 2 being a regular good Sfeka. Listen, if you ask the Shach would probably say something. Listen, there are some poskim that hold it's not a problem to begin with cheskas. So at least I'm giving you a chance if you have 3. I don't know. He may say that, or he may come up with.
Shach usually was brilliant.
Yes, of course. Here, even though some of the seifim are very extensive, some of them are very short, and that's all. That's all he says. Anyway, okay. By the way, it's what's important. The Shach does give an example. And this example is klal. It's a klal by itself. That's interesting. It's klal lamed base 32. He brings a case of a sfeka of the pegima, right? Remember the pegima, the kashas of the shchita?
The pegima on the knife.
Yeah.
Where the knife disappeared.
Yeah. He gives that example of the sfeka, but then what happened? It fell into a taaruvos. Okay. So far, it's not good. No, it's still a problem. Okay? But he says, after the Taaruvos, one of the pieces of the Taaruvos, Porash.
Uh-huh.
That's what makes the third suffix. Remember, we want to have here 3. This would be his example of 3. So on the Porash, even though I don't think everybody, the Taz doesn't agree with this, that make a difference. And who says that Porash should make a difference? But anyway, he wants to say that in this kind of an example, the third suffix being Porash would be okay.
So he would permitting the one that Porash, not the remaining
right,
Taaruvos.
right. Yeah. All right.
Why don't we say that as opposed to what's remaining? That's what we normally.
He wants to say it fell into the ocean.
Yeah, no. Remember, we're always lenient with the one that separates. Usually, the only time we want to be machmer, which is interesting too, we want to make assumptions as in Kuf Yud Aleph, is when you have the treif falling in. We know to begin with it's treif. Oh, it's treif. It for sure fell in where the treif is.
No, he didn't mean 2 parts. He meant in thing.
No. He meant.
Oh, the 2 parts.
No. He didn't. He just said it in stop.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so this piece that was porish, we see, on this piece the Shach would say we have 3 Sfekas. It would be mutter even against a cheskes.
You want to permit the remaining Taaruvos, right?
Why don't we permit the remaining Taaruvos? That's the question.
No.
Opposed to the
Right. So that as we said before, the first suffix, the first Sfeka doesn't count.
That's the ocean. Fell into the sea, to the ocean.
No.
That's what.
Oh, well, he wants to say that would be, that the rest would be mutter.
Why don't you call the one that's Parish the bad one, and now you can have the Taaruvos?
Yeah. Okay, that would be a good question.
But it's a very simple answer.
Very simple answer. When did they say that heter, famous heter? By Dover Choshuv.
And it only gives you a heter that it doesn't usher the whole Taaruvos anymore, but it can become misbattled in the 60. That's what it gives you.
Yeah.
So you still need the 60 to misbattle it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, in Klal Lamed, all it does is he brings an example.
Now, in our case here,
Yeah.
with the shach, with the piece that's parish,
Okay.
so why don't we have a bittul b60?
On the piece itself?
No, when it's on the Taaruvos.
No, he's talking about Taaruvos Beroiv, not B'shishim.
Not B'shishim.
Not
You don't have
B'shishim.
Shishim.
No, you don't have Shishim. Of course, you have Shishim, it's not a problem. Okay, in Klal Lamed, he brings an example of a behema that has a suffix in the shchita. There was a suffix in the shchita, and it was this arv chad bechad. And then, after that happened, we found a piece, right? And we have a suffix on that piece if it's from the behema kshera, or if it's from this behema that has a suffix.
I didn't understand. So we have a suffix behemoth.
Suffix in the shchita, right?
Suffix.
Right.
Then
And it was this arv chad bechad.
there's one piece that is kosher and one piece that he...
Right. Yeah. And then later on, somehow somebody found a piece, and we don't know if it came from that Taaruvos, which is from the problem Taaruvos, or if it came from a kosher. Now, in an ordinary situation where you may have such sfekas, it may be a good sfeka. Here, as we said, it would not be a sfeka because you have against the chazaka here, because the first suffix is whether the shchita was okay. So this is an example to what he was saying before, that the suffix in the shchita would contradict it, and therefore you would have a real cheskes iser. Then even though there's a separate suffix later about another piece together, you don't really have sfeka. All right, this is just an example of that.
But wouldn't that also be if you had a vadai treifa or a vadai nevela that fell?
Yeah.
Would be the exact same?
It would be.
So he's saying you're even if
it's a suffix, because it's not a real suffix, it's a vada yisur. If it's not a real suffix, it's like we treat it as a vada yisur. Okay, in the next klal, it's a very interesting klal called klal lamed gimel. Talks about suffix shokol or not, and I gave you a little bit of an introduction before.
Did we skip? We went from kaf ches.
I went to lamed beis was the example. Then I went back to lamed.
What a kaf tes?
Kaf tes was together with kaf zayin.
Oh,
that was the.
We did it before.
Yeah, we did it before.
I see.
Right. Kaf zayin was together with kaf tes. Of the 2 types of cheskes iser, is it soiser or it's not?
Okay.
So it's 2 examples. Yeah. Yet one we say the sfeka would not be. The other one said the sfeka would work because it's not soiser. So now we're going back to klal lamed gimel. Here, very briefly, very simply, he says 2 dinim. You do not say a sfeka unless the iser and heter are shovim, are equal. As opposed to what? As opposed to if you have a situation that you can determine that it's more likely that it's aser more than it's heter, that it's mutter. In other words, when you can determine that there's more of a chance that something can be usher than it could be mutter, then it's not a Sfeka. For a Sfeka to be a Sfeka, an additional klal, is that they have to be shavim. I'm equally in doubt about the prospects here. Therefore, whenever there is more of a chance, yesh litlois, as he says, that there is more of a chance that something is more usher than it is mutter, we don't say Sfeka. We don't consider it a suffix. Or, the second din, you do not say Sfeka when one of them is more shechiach than the other one, more common. Common, which is very similar to the first one, right? One is more usher. The second one is more common. It happens more often.
So there's an imbalance.
There's an imbalance between the two, right? Also not a suffix. And that's where he quotes Siman Nun and Hilchos Taaruvot about the Bach. That I quoted before, that you find a kanaf that's broken. And it's very possible that in those cases, or in those examples, or in those times, the shochet would, the way he held the chicken, he tended to many times, many more times than not, to bend the kanaf. So if we see a bent wing, chances are that it was the shochet's fault and not because of a fall. So since that kind of a situation gives rise to that possibility more than any other possibilities, then that's not even a suffix then. He did it. He did it before the shechita. We don't have a Sfeka anymore. But that would have to be the case, where the shechtim are actually holding it on, that we would blame it on him. So that's an example of where one is more shechiach, or one is yesh litlo, is that the isser is more probable than the heter, because, well, it was alive. So that's, you see, that's an example to this klal, of something either being more often, or more common, or something just being more chances of it being usher for some reason. By the way, the Pri Megadim says on this shach, I think, that there's a nafkamine from this, just like there's a nafkamine by Sfeka, if you say Sfeka or not, based on this klal, it would be a nafkamine also in a suffix derabanan, whether you say suffix derabanan lekula. If it's not a real suffix, because the chances are greater than not that something is wrong, then obviously you wouldn't call it a suffix derabanan lekula. You would call it suffix derabanan lechumra. Because it's not 50-50, it's not balanced. Some people say that would apply to that klal of suffix derabanan lekula. You would not say it then, because the chances are greater that it's asur. So just to finish up this concept of which is called suffix Sfeka she'eino shokul, what do we understand from it? From that Sfeka she'eino shokul, really, what it tells us is that it's not a suffix altogether. And therefore, we can appreciate now a little bit some other examples in halacha based on this. There's a Mogen Avram in Orach Chaim, Hilchos Pesach. There's various halachas that are concerned. A very shocking surprise to a balabosta on Pesach, where she sees a kernel of wheat in her chicken soup. It's a big problem on Pesach. Now here, there happens to be that in that particular case, the Mogen Avram's case, maybe we have a Sfeka. What's a Sfeka? Maybe it didn't come from the chicken. Maybe just the kernel of wheat came from somewhere else in the kitchen. And even if you say it did, maybe lo yechmitza. Maybe it didn't become a chametz. Didn't cook enough or whatever. That it poses a problem to the chicken, to the soup, to everything. So why wouldn't that be a Sfeka? Based on what we just... Because the majority of the time when you find a chita next to a chicken, it came from the chicken. Why? Because chickens eat.
Right.
They eat. So are you going to say, no, maybe it came from somewhere else, from the cookie jar? It came somewhere else. It's not a balanced suffix. More likely than not, it came from the chicken, so you can't say Sfeka here.
So you can't just make up a possible problem and say, I have a Sfeka.
Right.
It has to be something that's free, that's common.
I tell you years ago in
Yes.
Syria,
Right.
they tell you this story.
Yeah.
A kernel of wheat falls into a big pot of,
Yeah.
and this group of convert to that the rabbi that always.
Yeah. Sure. Wow.
So when I was there, they have certain dialects.
Yeah.
Someone, like few of people got on the bus,
Yeah.
and I know which dialect.
Yeah. You told me about it. Yeah. Yeah, you told me, yeah. That's something else, yeah. But anyway, listen to the next one. There is, I think, a Taz in Hilchos Niddah that says, sometimes you may have a Sfeka. You may say you may have a Sfeka by a woman who has a ketem, a stain. Stains could be a problem, sometimes not. What's the Sfeka about this particular kesem? Well, maybe it came from somewhere else, which is always a possibility. Makeup, ketchup, she was cleaning, and who says it's her blood? Maybe that stain is from somewhere else. And even if you want to say it's hers, maybe it came not from the makor, from this, where it would be tameh, it came from the tzadim, from the sides. It's not a Sfeka. Why? Because most of the time when it comes from her, it comes from the makor. If it comes from her. So you can't treat this kesem, this ketem, as a Sfeka. You could, of course, judge kesem by the general halachas of how to judge a ketem. Well, you look at the size, you look at the coloration, you look at the place where it is in the body, where it is in the clothes. You ask her the various questions of when did you notice it? Maybe you wore it before, you forgot, you washed. All kinds of, you can still ask those questions, but you don't make here a Sfeka because the second suffix, well, if it's from her, maybe it came from the side. No, because if it's from her, the majority of the times it's from the makor. Well, once you say it's the majority is from the makor, you can't build this into a Sfeka.
So can it ever help you, this consideration? Does it ever
Well, of
help?
course, because by ksomim, tamim are midrabanan, stains are midrabanan. So there are leniencies, and that is what you analyze it. You can analyze it. You look at the size, you look at the color, you look at where it is. What did you find it on? The toilet paper on the...
I'm asking the fact that it comes out of the wall, that it's a possibility, does that ever factor in?
Sometimes yes, because sometimes when a woman has blood, it could very possibly be from an injury.
Maybe by tzirut help?
Sometimes, yes, of course, but you're taking it's a big suffix. So, you don't want to take always a chance. You want to see a doctor sometimes if it's recurring. It depends on, there's various criteria here to determine. It's not simple. When it comes to injuries, it's not simple. When it comes to a doctor sticking something inside there, he may have touched the makor. He touched the sides. That's where one of these questions arises too. Well, depends on the instrument itself. How deep does it go? What kind of a test it is? Is it pap smear? And all these things, they can make a difference if we know what kind of a test and instrument was used on how far he could have gone to the uterus or not and so forth. But anyway, so we understand a little bit this klal of the shach now a little bit better with these examples. However, the good news is, however you want to look at it, is that in this Sefer Siddur Tahara, in the Pnei Yeshua, I believe, they write that even a Sfeka that is not shokol is not a problem. It still could be a Sfeka. And their Yesod is also from the Rashba. What's the Yesod of the Rashba of Sfeka? That the whole idea of Sfeka, as we saw before, Midin Roiv, right? Sfeka works because of the way the Roiv works. And as long as you have more tzdadim to be matir, more tzdadim leheter than you have the Isser, it's okay. As long as one suffix therefore is shokol, a real suffix, even though the other suffix is not as shokol, but if you combine the two, you will still have more heter than possible Isser, right? Tzdadim for heter, you will have, even if one suffix is not as shokol, the other one is. So when you combine the one that is not as much with the one that is, you will have more tzdadim, sides or reasons to be matir than to be aser. Therefore, that's like roiv. You have a roiv reason to be matir. That's what they're saying. Yeah, and therefore, even if it's not completely shokol, it would be okay. That's interesting, isn't it? But the shach is telling us, hey, you have to evaluate the sfekas, and obviously, depending on the situation, you're not necessarily going to be matir. The suffix is not a real suffix. What are the chances? No, the chances are that it usually is like this. Well, if you're saying the word usually, then you don't really have a suffix. But it all depends, I guess. If you follow the other shitas, it may constitute as a sfeka because all you need is roiv. All you need is roiv stodim lehatim, which you will have even if it's not so short. But at least what we have from the shach is that this is definitely an important klal in sfeka. Okay, we'll stop here.